What's up, everybody? Welcome to New Haunt Order. This is Matt Scott alongside Jim Jam.
Yeah. The suppression system, basically what it boils down to is I think a lot of these cities and state too, you have a sprinkler system that it saves their ass. Everything that they do is all about saving their ass because they don't want to allow a business in their city or state to operate and put people in danger. And like we had probably the worst sprinkler system at Death Yard. It was a dry system, and it would bust every winter. It doesn't matter if we drained it or not, like drain the drip valves or not. It would always bust. I remember I'm at a formal event for my old day job, a wedding venue, and the Omni, and I get a phone call, and that water is 6 inches deep at Death Yard because the sprinkler busted. And we had to go and crank it down, and the fire marshals, they just want to just make sure that they save their ass and make sure everybody's safe. And obviously a sprinkler system can put you back 30, 50 grand easy, and some haunts can't do that. And I think a lot of the times if you can't be up to par, then, you're never going to be able to open one. And I mean,
they don't require other businesses to have sprinkler systems. Grocery stores aren't required to have them. You know yourself, the grocery store can move out and the haunt can move in the next year and there's nothing there.
Yeah, I think like pre-existing buildings, I guess dealing with National Nightmare, and like they have this little bitty, at least Davidson County, they have this like entertainment clause or some kind of a deal where like special amusement, I think is what they call it. And that kind of, what sucks is haunted houses are bunched into this category where it doesn't help us by any means. And, they don't really know how to classify a haunt. So they're always like, it's a weird, even when you're trying to do like, when I was in business school, trying to do a business plan on haunted houses, there wasn't no such thing. Nobody knows about haunted houses unless you're in the business. And when you're in the business, nobody really wants to give you the 100% all the details because they, it's kind of a ego-driven, you know how it is.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of information when it comes to that stuff in cities.
I have a giant ego, of course.
We have a bad reputation with city officials, with realtors, with leasing agents. And it's sad because haunters are actually some of the best people. Now there's been a few apples spoil the bunch, but every city's different. And I've heard of people saying you have a suppression system that's great, but you didn't get it installed by X guy. So yeah. X guy is going to have to come in here and do a little bit of work for us to pass you. Oh, and by the way, that's my nephew. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah. I know we talked about it when we started the IAHA. We had a lot of board meetings where we talked about safety and what we could do to improve the reputation of haunted attractions. And I remember it might have been Bob Turner, Crazy Bob, or somebody was talking about it. They said, well, we've got this really bad reputation because haunted attractions, they'll go into business and then people saying they tore the building up and left it in a big mess. So he said, what can we do to fix this? I said, well, I don't know, clean your damn building up when you leave for starters. But I called a property manager once about a building up in Bristol. And he said, well, I'm not going to rent to a haunted house. I said, and why not? And he said, well, start with, y'all leave the building in awful shape. You tear everything up. I said, I've got letters from my previous landlords or people I rented from stating quite the opposite. I said, we carry $1 to $2 million liability insurance. He goes, yeah, all of them say they got insurance. None of them do. I said, well, I do. He said, well, I don't want anything like a haunted house in there because that's old devil stuff. I said, okay.
Yeah.
So,
there it is.
What's funny is Nashville Nightmare was able to get the space originally it got because he told them it was for storage for his Halloween stores. He only mentioned a haunted house when after he signed the lease. He said, well, I may be able to do a little small haunt here if I have time. They're like, oh, who cares? No big deal. He had to tell them it was for his Halloween Express stores. Otherwise, he may not have got in that space because they didn't want a haunted house in there.
Yeah, it's unfortunately the term haunted house has a real bad stigma around it, and hopefully we're on another cycle or another upswing to where people will look past the stories they hear and give people a shot with a space. But as long as there's, I always say it to people all the time, like all it takes is one haunted house having a mistake or a bad story, and it's suddenly all haunted houses are this way. Like the story
Ocean
I go
City.
to, yeah, the story I go to was a few years ago. They did a haunted auction barn in Blountville, up in Tri-Cities, and these guys left a tile blade in a circular saw because their thought was, it's a smooth blade, it's not going to cut anybody.
Ooh.
It's still a blade spinning in a saw. It's designed to cut tile.
But not people.
But not people. It's not a people saw. I don't know what the problem is.
Do they make people saws? Because I want one.
Any saw is a people saw if you believe in yourself and try hard enough.
There you go.
But this teenage girl came through and got scared, and like most people do, or especially most teenage girls do when they get scared, she kicked at the actor, and it cut a big chunk out of her leg. And it became a people saw. And the news stories were, it wasn't this specific haunted house hurt a patron due to their negligence. It was haunted houses are dangerous. Don't let your children go.
Because he used tile saws for people saws.
Yes. And I remember that aggravating me so much because, like, one, it's terrible that happened. I feel awful that someone got hurt. It's also like it sullies the industry that I'm so passionate about because, one lone idiot decided to leave a saw blade in a saw, whereas the entire rest of the industry is safe and considerate. But they're going to focus on that one story.
You also have to worry constantly about someone doing something stupid that's working for you. Something you wouldn't even, like putting a noose around their neck and then hanging themselves. I mean, that's happened before. Luckily, not to me, but not because they probably weren't trying, because you and I know we had some great people working for us, but some of them were. They didn't know nothing. They didn't even suspect nothing. All right, some of these people were just dumb as sticks. And everybody that has worked for me knows that I love everybody, and except for that one guy. Anyway, you find that you have to watch your actors like a hawk. Were you there when I had to burn the mask?
I think so.
This is one of my favorite haunt
That sounds
stories.
familiar.
So, I had everything laid out. We wanted the actors to wear. Everybody was assigned a scene, had a mask and a costume, and it was a small operation, but anyway, it worked. So, deep under the table in a box that probably had 100 feet of duct tape and filled with cobras to keep people away from it, there's some masks in there I didn't want people to use. I don't know why I left them there. I should have known not to. So halfway through the hunt, I see the mask. I didn't even buy the mask. Somebody brought it in and said, hey, man, we can use this because it looks good and scary. Because it's got a guy coming out of his head. Like that, man. Can you imagine somebody coming out of your head? Anyway, so it ends up in the hunt. I'm walking through. I said, what are you doing wearing that? Oh, I said, I know it's got something coming out of the head. Okay, take it off. Put your mask back on. I told you to wear, and give me the mask. So I took it, put it back under the table in the box with the cobra. So anyway, next night, somebody else has got it. So I take it and I throw it in the trash. Next night, it came out of the trash somehow. Somebody's walking by the trash can and goes, look at there. Somebody threw that great mask away with the hands. So it ended up back in the hump. 4 times it ended up in the hump after I had taken it away from people. So I finally gathered everyone around. We had a big 55-gallon can with a fire going in it, and I burned the mask. And I think I actually said, anyone who still wants to wear it can reach in now and pull it out. So people will do stupid stuff. It's not that they're wanting to destroy your business. It's just their nature.
They're stupid.
Well, Matt knows who I'm about to talk about. There was a kid named Brandon Inglis who's got a big heart for haunted houses, and he means well. It's just he's the kind of kid that would ask you a question, and as you're answering, he's already asking you another question, and he thinks he knows everything. So, Jimmy, when you came to Death Yard, did you see a guy on stilts when you came?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So that was pretty, I don't know, was it the first year of Death Yard or the second?
Well, it was the year that it closed down, so.
The second year, okay.
That was Mike Combs.
It wasn't Brandon then at the time. But anyway, he was our first stilt walker, and I don't know how many stories I had at Death Yard where I just wanted to kill that guy. And not only at Death Yard, but at Monster Mountain. So just talk about, I could draw it out in crayon. Don't do this. He was going to do it anyway. It didn't matter how many times I said it. He was going to do it. And I don't know if he was just put on this earth to test me, but he did a really good job. There was one time where I got so mad at him, I grabbed a spray can, and I reared back, and I was going to just pelt him with it, and I didn't. And then I also grabbed him by the – were you there when I grabbed him, Matt? Were you there for that one?
Yep.
And I just kind of shook him. I was like, just get out of my face. I was so upset with him. But top 3 stinky stories. We called him Stinky because his feet smelled so bad. One, Monster Mountain, Yellow Jackets. So we're at Monster Mountain. It's an outdoor attraction, and we're building this. We're reworking this scene, and we found a nest of Yellow Jackets. They love being at Monster Mountain for some reason. It's just like the perfect spot for those hellions to live. So he walks up and goes, hey, what's going on? And I was like, well, there's Yellow Jackets, Brandon. We can't work right now. We're going to try to figure out a way to attack the nest. He's like, I'll do it. I'm not allergic. I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I'm not scared. So we give him some spray. Snake Man gives him some spray, and Snake Man's like, And he goes up to this nest, face into the nest like this. I mean, I'm talking like right in the nest. Sprays that spray and just looks at the nest. They come flying out of that nest and just like, pow, 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 start pelting him in the face. He goes, oh, 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 oh. And he's running around like crazy, and he starts screaming. And I was like, what's up, hard ass? I thought you were going to be all right. He's like, it hurts. It hurts. And I was like, yeah, you dumb shit. Like, just because you're not allergic doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And his face starts swelling up. And he was so, like, pissed off. Like, he's mad at us because he was the idiot that went and sprayed it. I mean, right up into the nest. Oh, my God. And second stinky story that I have is he was getting on my nerves at Death Yard. And I told him, I said, just go take a break. I don't want to deal with you right now. So he waddles over to this other side of where Death Yard was, like in this industrial complex, and he sits on this dumpster. Well, when you sit on a dumpster, those the plastic covers, there's no middle bar. They'll cave in. So he's sitting there smoking a cigarette. Next thing I know, I see him go, whoop, 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 and he falls right in the dumpster. All I see is he's still sticking out of the dumpster. And we left his ass there for a good 10 minutes. He's like, get me out of here. Get me out of here. And I was like, no, you're good. Oh. And then the third stinky story is when I called up Matt I said, hey, man, we just got a call from the news. We're going to do like this costume contest. They want us to be a part of it. So I called Matt. I said, can you be Stinky's handler? Because he's on stilts. Can you take him down to the Fox 17 News? He's like, God. I was like, dude, I'd really appreciate it if you could do it because I had to work or something. And he took him down there. And how did it go, Matt?
We're on our way there, and he goes, am I going to fit in the studio? I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, the ceilings are pretty high. I mean, you're on stilts. He goes, I mean, look, it looks small on TV.
It's only this big.
I don't know if he thought it was going to be like a Johnny TV situation for Willy Wonka or what.
Is that also the same day he came back and confused the brain for a heart?
I think it was.
I mean, let me just say,
oh.
I pick on the kid. He's a good dude. He means well. He's got a big heart, but he's just one of those kids that just he made me a better person and a better manager and a better owner because
you went through trials.
Right, and I consider Brandon a friend of mine. I don't talk to him very often, but when he calls me, I talk to him, and but it's just a lot of stories of him, more than I could probably even tell here. But it's old Stinky, man, that he stunk up the whole haunted house with his feet, and then Matt made him. Me and you made him take a shower.
We physically dragged him into the shower.
Matt, were you there at Crone House the night you remember the crackhead couple?
Vaguely.
A guy that worked for Randy came over. He said, "Hey, man, my daughter and her boyfriend, they're wanting to see if they work for you at that haunted house thing." I said, "Well, I don't know if I can afford them or not." I said, "Yeah, well, I'll give them a try." And so the first night after the show, they're over going, "Hey, man, can we get paid like tonight?" I said, "Well, I usually pay on Saturday." "Well, yeah, man, but we got some bills we need to pay, and I wonder if you." And they was like itching, and they were jonesing for a fix, I guess. So anyway, the second night they show up, they have stopped at, I guess, Walmart or somewhere, or Walgreens. They bought one of the cassette tapes, Sounds of the Chilling Haunted House or something like that. You remember? Yeah. And you remember we had Vortex. I loved Vortex. I thought it was a great just background. I didn't want anything specific. So standing in the hump, everything's good. People are screaming, lines out front, everybody's moving along, and then the music stops. I go, and then Sounds of the Chilling Haunted House starts. I said, fuck. So I go back. I go back through the master control, and I take it out of the CD player. I said cassette, it was a CD. And I put the other thing back in, and just then the Scratchy comes up, and he goes, "What'd you take that out for, man? That was cool. That other stuff, man, that's weirding me out." I said, "Oxygen weirds you out. Don't change the music. Don't change the music. I picked this music specifically." So I'll tell you a couple of quick stories. We had a guy, our first year we were in the Johnson City Mall. The second year we were in Piney Flats. And at Piney Flats, before we opened, we got a call from a guy in Kingsport. His name was Steve. Steve goes, "Hey man, you the ones got the haunted house going?" I said, "Yes, sir." "Do you need people to be like ghosts and stuff?" I said, "Yes, we will." He goes, "'Cause I think I'd be real good at it." I said, "Okay, do you have any experience?" He said, "No, but I was in a play one time and I carried a really big axe. And I've still got it." Okay. He said, "Could I come over and audition or something?" I said, "Yeah, come on over." So I mean, I thought, well, he goes, "Listen, I'm on some antidepressants. Should I stay on those for this?" I said, "Yeah, I think that's good." He goes, "Should I bring that axe?" I said, "No, we have axes. We're good. We're good for axes." So he shows up, and I don't know what to expect. And this guy's about 6'4". He's got long black hair parted in the middle. He's pasty white. I mean, he looked great. And he ended up being one of the best actors we had.
Yep.
But I couldn't put him in a scene because it'd be like, "Ooh." I mean, he talked like that. And that's, so what I did, I put him in the line, just creeping people out. I said, just talk to people. And
Just be yourself.
just be yourself, which turned out to be a mistake as well, because himself said some really weird things from time to time. And my mom was working the ticket booth, and he'd go over and talk to my mom. And she loved talking to us. She got a kick out of him. And he came up to me one time. He said, "Did you see them two little gay boys that come through there? They screaming like girls." I said, "No, I missed that." He goes, "I think one of them went to the bathroom in his pants." I said, "Really?" And every night it would be some sort of story like that. So you never know when you're going. I always give everybody the benefit of a doubt.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I'm at a Wendy's in Hendersonville, and I'm ordering my food, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this tall 7-foot lurch-looking son of a bitch hunkered down under the vent of the fryer, and I was like, "Who is that?" And this lady goes, "Who? Jordan?" I go, "Yes, I need to speak with Jordan, please." So this 7-foot dude just walks up to me at the register, and he looks down and he was like, "Yeah." And I remember looking up like, "Hey man, do you want to work in a haunted house and get paid?" He's like, "I guess. I gotta ask my parents." I was like, "How old are you?" 16. I was like, Jesus, he wore like a 15 shoe. The biggest kid I've ever seen. His dad was even bigger than he was.
He was gigantic.
And the worst part about Jordan, the only thing that just ruined it, is when he would try to speak as a character, it came out British.
He was always British. I remember one night.
I was like, oh no.
I remember one night I walked into the scene and I was like, "Jordan, everything you're doing is great except your accent." He goes, "What accent?" "That one." Oh, no, I'm just talking." I'm like, "Nope."
He made chips at the Wendy's.
I was like, "Oh man." So somebody goes, "Carol, man, where'd you find this guy?" I go, "Wendy's."
"Where'd you find an Englishman that tall?"
You're right though. I mean, we had this one guy named Derek, and his family in a station wagon would drop him off. And this kid, I don't know how to explain it, was just different. But that dude would kill any scene you put him in. He macho man off the cop car, elbow dropped the cop car, and got glass all in his elbow the last night we were open, and just put himself out there 100% all the time, but smelled like an onion. And I mean, but that guy, who did he remind you of? Matt, he reminded me of somebody. We were talking about it, and he actually went on to work at Devil's Dungeon.
I'm trying to remember who it was that we said he reminded us of.
Was it one of the Klopeks from the Burbs?
I think so. I think it was
Pinocchio? Where do you think you're going? Was it him? Maybe. I don't remember. We had so many discussions in the Death Yard office about that. But Derek was an individual, he came from Gorehouse. He was one of the ones that came from Gorehouse. But he was a great asset to Death Yard. And, actually, Jordan went on to work at Monster Mountain after Death Yard closed.
Some
He
people
worked at
get
Monster
it.
Mountain before. Before or after, I don't remember.
Some people just get it.
yeah.
My brother-in-law, Frank, I always call him Frankie. Everybody called him Frankie. He came up for 3 years and helped me with Crown House. He was living out in Oklahoma. He came up and would stay with us. And he could have built it without me. And then Andrew Sieber got it. Sieber was a natural. He was great management. Eventually became a policeman. A guy named Stephen Abear. You remember him, the tall guy with long red hair that wore those big long coats? And he was perfect. We had Stacy and Shane. Shane saw and Stacy, man, Stacy would scream her guts out. And it was just a great thing. And you're talking about the guy elbowing the cop car. Frankie's favorite story, not just haunted house story, but favorite story ever about me, besides me spiking a volleyball 175,000 feet in the air, involved, we were building a Crone House the first year at the campground. Carol and Jimmy, we built a 18-room house in the middle of the campground without a floor or without a ceiling.
Wow.
We lit it. We had speakers.
Yep.
It went against everything that you'd ever think of doing, didn't it, Matt?
Yep.
And it was great until it poured rain that Friday before Halloween. We lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But anyway, so we're building. The first year, me and Frankie are the last ones to leave. And we get in my truck. I had just bought a truck from Randy for $700. It's a really good one. Actually, it was a great truck. I drove it for another 10 years. So we get in the truck, and I'm backing up, and I hit something. I hit the only tree within 1,000 miles of the campground. There was a huge tree 100 feet from the haunted house. And as I'm backing up, I mean, it's not like it's a sapling. This thing's as big around as Rosie O'Donnell. So I slam into this tree, and we both just like that. And we both look back through the rearview mirror, and we both start laughing. I'm not upset because I only paid $700 for the truck. It didn't even hurt the bumper. But we were laughing, and we laughed all the way home. The next year, we're building Crone House, same campground. Getting ready to leave one night, and Frankie says, "You remember last year when we," and then we hit the tree again. If I never back into that tree again in my life, it'll be too soon.
My favorite Frankie story was fixing something in the middle of the show, like
Corpse
something
later.
messed up. The corpse later. He's having to fix corpse later, and a group's coming through, and he just
The
goes,
break-a-later.
he just goes,
breaker.
with the screw gun.
Yeah, He's fixing the prop, and he hears the group coming. So rather than just hide, he turns around with the drill and goes, "Arr!" Yeah.
It worked. Was it Shane that chased the kid across Volunteer Parkway that night?
Yes. And they came out of the Shane Ford. I love Shane Ford. He was one of the best guys we ever had down there. He worked for me for the 2 years we were at the campground. His girlfriend, Stacy, they loved Crone House. And Shane loved Michael Myers. Shane also loved Leatherface. And get this, Shane was always late, and I told him every night, I said, "You're going to regret being late some night." Well, Dick Warlock came one Friday night before we opened because he lived over in Kingsport. You know, Dick Warlock played Michael Myers in the second Halloween movie.
Also, Richard Dreyfuss' stunt double in Jaws.
But really, I didn't know that.
He was in the Shark Tank.
Dick comes over to see us. I'd invited him, and Shane missed him because he was running late. And bless his heart. Anyway, I got off on a tangent. So Shane would be the last thing. They go past we had a survey board. Now, I think this is the best thing I ever designed. I didn't design the prop. The prop was a drop portrait. But instead of a painting or a portrait on it, I put a chalkboard that was scored with lines. And it said at the top, "Was Crone House scary, yes or no?" And it had a column of yes and a column of no. And there's a piece of chalk hanging there. They'd pick up the chalk, go to mark on it, and it would slide down out of the frame. And the monster would come out at him. And he'd usually get hit in the face with the chalk dispenser. So anyway, they go past the chalkboard. And then chainsaw, he'd chase them out with the chainsaw. He had the apron and the Leatherface mask and everything. We could care less about copyrights. But anyway, he scared one boy, and the boy kept running. Well, then the boy came back to find his friends, and then Shane ran out there again with the chainsaw and chased him off again. Finally, he wouldn't come back. He called him. He said, I'm up here at the ticket booth. Ticket booth was out there. So they said, "Okay, we'll come get you." Well, Shane got up in the back in the bed of their truck with the chainsaw and laid down.
Oh, shit.
When they went to get the guy, they told him, said, "Just get in the back. We don't have room up front." He jumps in the back and starts that chainsaw. And the kid jumps out of the truck and runs across the highway.
Middle of the night, pitch black, and Volunteer Parkway was a 4-lane highway with a median.
Yeah.
And he would not come back. I don't know why.
That's funny.
Scared the shit out of that guy.
Here's I'll tell you a quick House of Shock story. The year I played down there, I was in my zombie get up, and I went and was working the line out front, and there was a girl there, and the guy with the chainsaw kept coming out, and she was terrified of chainsaws. And then it kept going. Finally, she would start hiding behind all of her friends. And then he came out with a leaf blower. And I don't know if she just didn't realize it was a leaf blower. She pulled down about 600 feet of stanchion chain.
Jeez.
Getting away from this guy. And the chain was wrapping around. It was plastic chain, fortunately, but it was wrapping around people's legs, and it was that was such a great experience. I used to go over to Hacker House with Cliff Martin, And I love Cliff Martin. He's one of my favorite. He's one of my best friends in Hunts. And Stu McIntyre used to come down from Maryland, Stooby Doo, and we'd meet over there, and me and Stu would work. And it was fun getting back, getting back in the boots and just being a hunter again, not having to worry about running stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of, people that just kind of sometimes get it, sometimes they don't, or the guy with the drill scaring people.
Yeah.
I worked at Outback Steakhouse, and at Monster Mountain, we needed more actors. So I said, anybody want to work the haunt tonight? And so my buddy's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. So we put them in the Christmas scene. We had a Christmas scene. So one guy's at the door when they greet, and it was like, I'm walking through checking on people, and he stops me and goes, Carol, man, I just want to apologize. And I said, for what? And he said, well, the last group, I think I screwed up. And I said, what'd you do? He's like, well, I kind of cussed at him. I said, well, why'd you do that? He said, well, they were coming through the door, and I froze. I didn't know what to say. So I looked at the Christmas tree, and I grabbed the baby doll that was under the tree, and I grabbed it, and I started stabbing it with this pencil that I found. And I started yelling, Merry fucking Christmas, Stephen! Merry fucking Christmas! And I was like, you did that? And he's like, yeah. And then the other guy goes, yeah, man. And then when they came down the hallway, I busted out the bust-away doors, and they were like, oh, hell, somebody's going to be in the closet. And I busted out of the door and said, bull, motherfucker, like that. And I was like, guys, this is the worst thing you could possibly do.
They're going, shut us down.
I was like, God. And they were like, we got that out of our system. We're going to be all right. So then I asked them if they wanted to work again. They were like, no, we're good. They got it out of their system. But I was like, how crazy does it have to be to sit there, you freeze, don't know what to say, and then just start cussing out customers and start stabbing a doll?
I panicked.
I was like, I'm worried about your mental health. If you start stabbing a doll with a pencil, oh my God. But
oh man,
I tell you, I'm gonna say a quick story here, and I'll let y'all decide which one you want to hear, because I know we're running out of time. I can tell the diarrhea story. I can tell the Snake Man and me meet the creature story. Or I can tell I wasn't there for it, but I got the play-by-play, which is pretty funny, about the guy treating Monster Mountain's parking lot like an off-road track and jumping into his truck into the pond and it's sinking. I can tell that story. So which one would y'all want to hear out of those three? Because I know we're stressed for time.
I got to vote for the creature story.
Creature
Yeah,
story.
real quick, is there going to be some Snake Man imitations?
Probably.
I got to go with that one then.
All right. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We're up at the mountain in what they used to call the dance room. It's where basically halfway through the show is this big structure that we had stripper poles in and rap music, dance music playing, and people can kind of cut loose, have some fun. So we're in there working on something. I don't even remember. And we're cutting outside because we've been painting and staining. We didn't want the dust to get in there. So we walk outside close to where the burning house was to cut. And it's like I said, it's 3 a.m. Me and Snake Man are out there with our headlights on. He's out there, doing everything. That's how Snake Man talks. And he's telling me how I need to cut a board, and I'm like, God damn it, Snake, I'm on it. I know what I'm doing. He's like, hey, you stiff motherfucker. We're going back and forth. And I think I said something. I said, Snake Man, I said, what the hell do you know? And just messing with him. He's like, I know more than you, you stupid ass. And next thing I know, I hear what sounds like this. And I immediately just freeze. And I'm like shaking. And I look over at Snake Man because I'm like, maybe Snake Man heard that and can like figure out what that meant. And Snake Man is wide-eyed and scared to death. Okay, Snake Man looks like a Hell's Angel, number one. Number two, I've never seen Snake Man. He's just grabs random snakes. Just not scared of anything. So when I saw Snake Man was scared, I started to get a little scared. So then the next thing I'm like, okay, what made that sound? And next thing I know, trees start moving like Jurassic Park back and forth, and it yells this, and it jumps from tree to tree and getting closer to us, breaking branches. This thing it sounds like it's huge, okay? So I'm like, Snake Man, what the fuck is that? He goes, fuck if I know, but I'm about to get the fuck up out of here. And I looked at Snake Man, and he runs for his cart, little utility cart. I'm running over to the Snake Man. He can't find the keys. And we keep hearing this thing like screeching and like, it's like it's chasing us. We don't even know, right? We don't even know where this thing is, what it is. We haul ass down the hill. We leave all the lights on, all the power on. We get to he takes me up to my house. I lived across the street. And I said, Snake Man, what the hell was that? He just looks at me and he's like, fuck if I know. And I just remember going, I don't want to be back up there. And I never heard it again. I never knew what it was or
So you never knew,
anything.
you never found out what that was.
Never did. And to this day, like I'll get chill bumps talking about that sound that it made and how big it was, because these trees were just, like I said, like a T-Rex was coming through the woods.
In the wood. Now, where was this? At the Monster Mountain you're
Monster
talking
Mountain,
about?
yeah, right outside of Hendersonville.
Wow.
To see Snake Man scared was something that like when I saw he was scared, that's when I started to get scared, because, I was sitting there thinking, what could it, like trying to process, what could it be? And somebody said it was probably just a peacock. I said, a peacock?
Yeah.
Get shit out of here. There's no way that was a peacock, man. Because
15 foot tall,
yeah, I said, I never saw the
700
creature.
pound peacock.
But I heard it, and I saw the trees that it was moving, and this wasn't no peacock. This thing was pissed that we were up there, whatever it was.
That was the monster of Monster Mountain.
They call it the
Bigfoot.
Wookiee. They called it the Wookiee up there, but
Think it's a Bigfoot?
Yeah,
Maybe.
You know,
That
I'm
screams.
the Sevier County representative for East Tennessee Bigfoot. So
What?
I take it that very seriously. I'm huge into trains. I don't know if you can see, all the rest of my stuff is mostly train books and trains, haunts, and Bigfoot. I love Bigfoot. Of course, I played bluegrass music for years, and I always wanted to do a Bigfoot Woods attraction. I tried to get John, and then when John Tarpley was the projects manager for the escape rooms up in Gatlinburg, I tried to get them to do a Bigfoot. They ended up doing one called Goliath, which was a gigantic bear. But I think it'd been much better as a Bigfoot. And then somebody not too long after that actually did a Bigfoot. We had great times, Matt, as you know. I miss it. John and I have talked about trying to do another one up here. We're looking at some possible locations. Can't seem to get much traction, though. It's hard to, as all of you know, these are difficult things to try to get going.
Yep.
And there are people who've gotten lucky. I still think there's a lot of luck to it. I mean, you work hard. You can work hard. Carol, I know you guys worked hard. You put a lot of money into it, and you did everything that you think possible you can do. And like, I've talked to other people, and they said, well, man, we just took an old house one Halloween, we put some candles in it, and 40,000 people showed up and gave us $100 each.
Yeah.
We didn't mess with it after that. You know, you hear stories like that. And I wonder if any of them are true, but I do know people gotten lucky in the haunt business. They didn't start out. They didn't start out planning on being the House of Shock or 13th Gate or, you know, any of these. Spooky Woods started in Tony's I got my Spooky Woods shirt on, by the way. Tony Wogemuth, one of my good buddies over in North Carolina, Kersey Valley, North Carolina. I think he started out in a house he was either born in or grew up in.
Yep.
And now it's still the first part of the haunt you go through. It's a great, Spooky Woods is great if you ever get a chance. If you're over in North Carolina around Halloween, hit Hacker House. Cliff Martin, like I said, great buddy of mine. I've got friends all around the country that do haunts. I met a lot of people, you know, when we started IAHA. It for a while it went really well, and I didn't have a lot of time to put into it, but I did what I could, and then it merged with the HHA or the whatever. But
The HAA or
HAA, yeah, those were fun years though. I made a lot of good friends I still hear from time to time. Haunters all around the country. And you know, let me show you this real quick. This book, this is Michael Roddy's book, Haunter's Tale. If you're a haunter, get this. There's some great stuff in there. Now, I'm not selling any of these. Well, actually, I sell the last one. I just wanted to show, this is a copy of my first book, Complete Haunted House book. That's actually from the first printing. The very rare second book most people didn't know existed. That's Haunted House Sketchbook. And this was just random sketches that I put together in a little spiral bound book. And then this was the last one, the Make Your House Everything You Ever Haunted.
I've got a copy of that one.
Yep. That's a great book if people are wanting to start a haunt. But I wasn't helped actually get me started into the haunt business and get to know people. I was sitting on a cruise ship. I worked cruise ships for 27 years. I was sitting on a ship one day. I did that too. I usually save that for my act. Anyway, I was sitting on the ship one day and I thought, man, I miss doing haunted houses. And I thought, you know, I only knew of one book had ever been written on the subject. And that was Phil Morris and Dennis Phillips' book. So I thought, well, I'm going to write a book. And about a year and a half later, I opened the box in Chicago. The first box, I had the printers ship a box up there because it wasn't going to be ready yet. Sending it to the hotel I was staying up there. And when I got to the hotel, checked in, he said, "Oh, this came for you." And he handed me a box of, there's 25 books in it. And man, I could not wait. That was the first thing I'd ever done like that. Got up to my room, opened it up, pulled out the first, matter of fact, I got the first one laying over there. The first copy of it I kept. And then I took some to the show, Transworld show. And then Phil Morris and I made a deal, and he took pretty much just about all the first printing. Phil Morris was a wonderful friend. Philip Morris, I call him Phil, but Philip Morris, Morris Costume. He was Ultimate Showman. Met him when I was in the second grade. He did a magic show in my town, that inspired me to become a magician. Years later, I worked for him. I did some shows for him. I performed over at Morris Costumes for the National Costumers Association with Lash LaRue, the bullwhip artist. Lash and I and Tommy Curtin, the juggler, national champion juggler from Bristol, rang the bell. And then I did tours in Louisiana and Texas for him. And he was a real good friend. I miss Phil. Tommy and I went over to see him about a year before he died. Phil had Alzheimer's. And we went over to see him about 6 or 8 months after he was diagnosed. And part of the time you'd never know anything was wrong. And then all of a sudden he wouldn't know how to write his name. Or we took him and Amy, his wife, I love Amy, we took them out to eat over at Golden Corral. That's where they wanted to eat. And we went over to the buffet, and we all got our stuff, came back, and me and Amy and Tommy Curtin, the juggler friend, and Phil was nowhere in sight. She got, oh, I hope he hadn't wandered off. So we sat there a little bit, and Phil finally comes up, and he's got a really big plate, and it's completely covered with baked beans. That's all he that's all he got. We went back over to the costume company and sat and talked, and he would talk. He could remember 1945, the Rialto Theater in Flint, Michigan. I was on the show with so and he would rattle off these dates and people and times and what they did and everything. And then it would be like a light switch. He didn't know how to spell his name, or he wasn't sure who his wife was or whatever. It was sad, but I'm glad I spent some time with him. We went over, spent a day with him, and I'll miss him. He and I disagreed on Bigfoot, but he was the showman's showman. He was the grandfather of haunted attractions, and I miss Philip Morris. He's one of a kind.
I think I only met him once at Trans World, but he seemed, older fella by that time, and just hearing the stories about him, just kind of like you said, like huge innovator of the industry and beyond. And it's kind of cool that you got to know him in that way, because I just hear stories, so that's pretty cool.
He started with he and his wife made gorilla suits in their basement, and he was tight as Dick's hat band too. He was cheap as could be. When he'd check into a hotel, he would give him a business card that said Philip Morris, travel agent. He wasn't a travel agent. He just had the card printed up. And they'd look at it, and then he'd go, I'm going to need that card back. Because he only had one.
Oh, man.
Oh, so I've had a wonderful life in the haunt business. I made some great friends. Matt, I love you like a son I never wanted. I'm very proud of you.
My dad tells me the same thing.
Well, he's not your real father, by the way. I love you've done so well with Von Grimm.
Thank you.
And one of the things that made me feel very proud was when you told me when you applied at Ripley's and they asked you if you had any haunt experience. You remember telling me that story?
Vaguely.
I think he's talking to Greg. I don't know. You said, well,
Greg was the one who interviewed me. Yeah, Greg was the one who gave me my interview, and I remember telling him that I worked at Crone House and worked with you. And I'm trying to remember how it went.
He said you'll never work in the haunt business. No.
He said, "Well, it's been great,
It's
but
been nice. Thank you very much. Work for that bastard, and you'll never."
But no, I do remember the first time he found out that I knew you and that I'd worked with you. He was very excited, very complimentary about that because of your reputation in the haunt industry. And I've had several people that were that way, and it was one of those. Is like because I didn't know you prior to my time at Crone House. All of that kind of caught me off guard because I was unaware of the reputations you did have. I knew it was like I just knew you as my buddy and a guy I liked and a guy that meant a lot to me and taught me a lot. But then to find out that there were people in the industry that didn't know you and were floored when I told them that I was, had lunch with you at Hardee's on our first date.
First date.
One thing I want to show off is Matt's done so great. This bad boy. He
oh, cool.
Yeah, he made this for me. That's Rafe.
Rafe?
Yeah, I've been blessed in the time I've been in the haunt industry to know people like you, Tim, and Greg Weir. I want to get Greg on the show at some point and chat with him, and to have such a strong friendship with Carol that I do that, and now gotten to know Jimmy over the last couple of years really well, and
Oh, yeah.
it kind of supersedes just the enjoyment factor of haunting to really make those friendships and be able to keep them and stay in contact with those people. And it means a lot to me. And I'm really glad we were able to do this. And I want to do some more stuff like this and just, swap stories and talk about the industry that we enjoy so much.
Oh, yeah.
Well, in the haunt business, I've managed to work myself up from nothing to a state of massive debt and zero name recognition. So I'm very happy. No, it's not a job. It's kind of like the was it the Army? It's not a job. It's an adventure. It's not a job. It's a way of life almost. It's different.
Yeah, it has
The friends
to be.
the friends you make in the haunt industry, you might not see them for 2 or 3 years, and then you just pick up right where you left off. It's great. Very proud of you, Matt.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You rascal.
I don't know if it's fate or just ignorance, not knowing when to stop, but it's worked out so far.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
I'm too dumb to know when to quit.
Ignorance and stupidity is a recipe for success.
That's what I keep telling myself. But I've been lucky to align myself with the right people throughout my career. Carol is definitely at the top of that list for when I came down to Nashville. He was one of the first guys to give me a shot in the area, and enjoyed our time at Death Yard more than anything I've done in the last 10 years. It's definitely going to be a haunt that I hold near and dear to my heart forever. It's going to be, it's going to be right up there with Crone House and with my time at Ripley's of, being a special time in my career, because it was so much fun and it was such a creative environment. And I remember there were several times we'd sit up in the office, I would have a sketchbook out and we'd be talking about stuff we wanted to do and come up with character designs and just pitching ideas at one another and how cool would it be to do this? Or, he would tell me about Cult Grindhouse, which was a fun scene that I didn't really get at the beginning. Like, he pitched it to me and he's like, it's like a lost member of the Manson family. And he's built his lair and it's all like 60s and 70s. And I was like, all right, whatever. Well, I'll trust you because, you haven't steered me wrong yet. And when you got the right people in that scene, it was phenomenal. That scene was great. Camp Blood, our Friday the 13th scene, I would put up against any scene in a haunted house anywhere, especially any Friday the 13th scene, because you felt like you were at Camp Crystal Lake and we were inside a
Campy smell. We didn't even use scents. It was just really weird.
I know that hallway that went to the outside made it feel like you were outside in October.
Yeah.
But it was a phenomenal time there, and the connections I've made through that to then to get to go be at Nashville Nightmare and enjoy my time there. But the atmosphere we had at Death Yard was something I want to try and recreate when I do have my own show.
Do you remember how cool it would be? We'd be there working all day and just random people would show up and like wanting to help. And then we'd sit there in the office and kick ideas back and forth. And we'd, tell some funny stories, make some jokes, go eat, come back. It's like, it wasn't a job at all, man. If you had to leave, you were bummed you had to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was,
you're hanging out with your haunt friends, and that was, you're with people that you knew you could be yourself around. You didn't have to, you didn't have to pretend to be, normal.
And if you're one of the people that's lucky enough to earn a living from just doing haunting, I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I would still, I turned 60 this year. I would still love to just do haunting, and then rest of the year play with my trains. Me and Greg
There
are
you go.
trained. Greg's into model trains as well.
Yep.
Greg Weir. All right, I got to go.
Yeah,
Tim,
me
take
too,
care.
guys.
Carol,
It was great.
it's great seeing you again.
Good to see you, sir.
Jimmy, it was wonderful to meet you.
You too.
Matt, that beard's just nasty ass. You need to trim it or do something.
Well, I
Looks like
can't go to the barber right now, so
Man, look, I've my hair flips up like Grandpa Munster. Herman,
what little bit I've got left is long and stringy.
You
wow,
got some chop top up there, Matt. Looks like chop top.
there you go.
Yeah. What you got back there? All right, guys. Thanks again to Tim Harkleroad and Carol Moore for coming on and chit-chatting and sharing stories and wandering down Amnesia Lane with us.
Oh, yeah.
You guys have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
Take
All
care.
right.
See ya.
See ya.
Night.